Remember these? Staying home on Election Day is a matter of choice, of course. But no American should forfeit their vote without first considering why it matters. Rocca reports our cover story.
There's no such thing as not voting, right? Not voting is voting. It's voting to hand your power over to someone else who's going to say, thank you very much. Let me take that voice and that power and exercise it in your name, but in my interests.
Makes sense, right? And yet, less than half of eligible voters are expected to show up at the polls this Tuesday. And that's a vexing problem, according to Eric Liu.
I think the greatest enemy here is indifference. And indifference can take various forms. One is the game is rigged, so why should I even bother paying attention?
My vote doesn't matter.
My vote doesn't matter. The other form is, well, just complete, not even apathy, but complete ignorance. Across the country, there has been a disinvestment in civic education.
Which is why Liu started Citizen University, a program which travels the country teaching Americans of all ages the lost art of civics.
Civic Saturday is about taking seriously our country's creed of liberty and equal justice.
Now I know what you're thinking. Civics? Ugh. Didn't I take that in high school? Well, if you're over the age of 60, you probably did. Civics is, simply put, the study of how to be a good citizen. In fact, that was the original mission of public schools, creating good citizens. Part of that, and just a part of it, was learning how government works.
Legislative, executive, judicial. These are the three main branches of our federal government.
It's been well documented that the partisan discord in our country followed very closely on the heels of schools stopping to teach civic education.
That's Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor. She and fellow Justice Neil Gorsuch agreed to talk to us about their work promoting civic education.
We've talked about this a lot. Only about 25% of Americans can name the three branches of government. A third of them can't name any branch of government. And 10% believe that Judge Judy is one of our colleagues.
Is that right?
With no disrespect to Judge Judy, she is not a member of the Supreme Court.
But Sandra Day O'Connor was. The retired justice has led the drive to return civics to the classroom.
I well remember having a lot of civics classes, and I got pretty sick and tired of it, to tell you the truth. I thought it was miserable.
So she started iCivics, a more engaging curriculum to teach civics with the help of video games.
The most popular games in iCivics.org are first, how to win the White House.
And this is why you should vote for me.
And the second most popular game is, do I have a right?
Clients come to us so we can protect their rights, as found in the amendments to the U.S. Constitution.
That's a tough game. That's a tough game.
Very, very tough.
You know, it's important if we, the people, are going to run our government, that we know what it is, how it works, and how we can participate in it.
Now, a second important component of civics is civility. Civility is manners. You know, that thing in short supply these days. You and I learning to disagree without tearing each other's heads off. But that doesn't mean everyone agreeing on everything.
Half of you are going to be assigned the position of supporting this idea of getting rid of offensive mascots. You know, I tell my students, I don't want you to come in here and hold hands and sing Kumbaya. You know, I want us to have better arguments. I want us to understand these complex issues that face our republic.
West Chicago Community High School's Mary Ellen Daneels wants her students to debate controversial topics.
Without these mascots, many people wouldn't know the history of some of these Native Americans.
I argue that it would be even more awkward to walk into a gym, you know, as somebody with Native American history, you know, and looking at what is supposed to be representative of your culture.
Okay, but you're not shying away from what's actually happening right now.
No.
Whether it's presidential tweets, whether it's fights on the floor of the House.
To be honest, I don't use a textbook in my classroom. Our textbook is the newspaper.
It's not about the conflict as much as it's about how you speak
Seniors Daniela Almorales, Spencer Houston, Sabrina Lutfayeva, and Rudy Munoz are currently in the course.
How big a role is President Trump playing in your class?
The president's, infamous Twitter account, that's just like an everyday Tuesday for most of us.
We deal with a lot of drama every day because it's high school and
yeah.
A lot of stuff goes down in the hallways.
We're teenagers and we can be civil with each other, but in the professional world, I don't see that.
Do you look at the TV and yell at the politicians and say, "You're making my job harder"?
I do, but I also say sometimes, thank you, because you're an object lesson for my students of, if you don't do this, this is what it looks like. Here's a view at the end of the road. Is this what you want?
And that brings us to the last big part of civics. It's kind of the loftiest part, putting country over yourself, and yes, even over your own party. This guy knows what I'm talking about.
There have been many moments in American history where we had partisanship every bit as intense as right now, and actually we saw great outcomes, great progress.
We have different views, we have different ideas, we have arguments. That's good. That's the nature of a healthy democracy. But we also need to have something, what holds us together?
Harvard Business School professor David Moss teaches the history of democracy.
That's the part that I'm worried about. And I think the reason our partisanship looks less constructive than it once was, maybe even destructive, is that we don't have that glue holding us together. And that glue is a strong faith, a strong commitment, a strong belief in the democracy.
Consider then that only 30% of Americans born after 1980 say that it's essential to live in a democracy. But Moss isn't alarmed, yet.
The American democracy has been more resilient than many people expected. But can it break? And the answer from the 1850s up to 1860 and 61 is that yes, it can. And so I think we have to just be careful with it.
There's no panacea here, right? I mean, how are we going to boost these numbers on belief in democracy?
I think bringing civics back into school, but not civics that students say is boring. But we want to look for things that engage students, that are substantive, and that they're excited about.
Ah, if only life were as simple as those civics films of yesteryear.
Well, Bill, Washington and Jefferson and Lincoln are dead. They began our democracy, but they knew the job would have to be finished by those who lived after them.
What do you say to the people who, and there are a lot of them, I think, who say, the reality of government doesn't match up with textbook civics?
And my answer is, what are you doing about it? If you really care, then you can't complain, you have to do. Then we can have a conversation.
It's our government, Bill. From here on, it's up to us.